You think you know yourself, your values, your limits, the lines you'd never cross. But sometimes, all it takes is a single moment, a glance, a closed door, and suddenly everything you believed about yourself slips away like water through your hands. I never imagined I'd carry this kind of secret. But here I am. My name is Claire. I was a wife, a mother, or at least the closest thing to one a boy like Mason had ever known. Mason wasn't our biological son. My husband, David, and I took him in when he was 16. After years bouncing through the foster system, he arrived guarded and quiet, sharp edges, heavy shadows, always on edge, barely trusting the floor beneath his feet. We gave him a home. I gave him structure, warmth, stability. And in return, he gave us something unexpected: gratitude, loyalty, and a version of family we never thought we'd find. At first, things were simple. He called me Claire. And the way he said it always held a gentleness, something respectful, almost careful. But slowly, I began to notice a shift. He started looking at me differently, not with a boy's admiration, but with something deeper, more complicated. Something dangerous. At first, I chalked it up to confusion. Hormones. His lack of experience with boundaries. But deep down, I knew better. I saw it in his eyes. He wasn't seeing a mother. He was seeing a woman. And worse, I was starting to see him the same way. David never said anything, but I felt it. In the way his eyes flicked between us at dinner. The way the air between the three of us grew heavier with each passing day. We all felt it. But no one spoke. Then came the night everything cracked. David had left for a 2-day work retreat. It was just Mason and me in the house. I made pasta. After dinner, I poured myself a glass of wine. Mason helped clean up, and we laughed at something silly, something forgettable. But when his hand brushed mine, it lingered. Just a second too long. The warmth of his skin felt like a fuse sparking to life. I pulled away, gave a forced smile, and excused myself to the living room. Later, I passed by his room to leave some folded laundry. The door was slightly ajar. I knocked softly. No response. I pushed the door open a bit more and froze. He hadn't heard me. He was sitting on the edge of his bed, shirtless, breathing hard. The sight knocked the breath out of me. I should have shut the door. Walked away. I didn't.
He turned.
Our eyes met. The air between us stilled.
Panic. Shame.
And something else passed over his face, something darker. He fumbled to button his jeans. Claire. God, I didn't know. I'm sorry, he stammered. I didn't move. My mind screamed at me to turn, to pretend it never happened. But I stood there, frozen, watching him, and feeling something inside me stir. He looked at me again. I can't stop thinking about you, he whispered. I know it's wrong, but I can't. My hands shook. My voice, when it came, was barely a whisper. You shouldn't say that. But it's true, he said, stepping closer. You're the only person who's ever made me feel like I matter. I know I'm not your son. I never was. I didn't stop him when he reached for me. I didn't stop him when his lips met mine. And when I kissed him back, I knew everything was about to change. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my heart pounding, my mind spiraling. I felt ashamed, confused, but also alive, in a way I hadn't felt in years. David and I had become more like roommates than lovers. He hadn't really seen me in so long, but Mason did. And that truth was both terrifying and intoxicating. Over the next few days, I avoided Mason like a secret I couldn't bear to face. I buried myself in housework, emails, chores, anything to keep me moving. But he was always nearby, watching, waiting. Then, David left again just for a business dinner. I poured myself another glass of wine and put on a movie, trying to keep the quiet from swallowing me. Mason walked into the room. Silent. Tense. He stood there for a long moment, just looking at me. Then he spoke. Claire, we need to talk. My stomach dropped. Mason, whatever happened, it can't happen again. I know what you're going to say, he replied softly. That it was a mistake. That we're family. But we're not. Not really. "You know I gave you a home," I whispered. "We gave you a life. And I'll always be grateful for that," he said. "But I'm not a kid anymore. And I'm not your son. I'm a man who's in love with you." His words struck like lightning. I turned away, breathing hard. He didn't move. He just waited. And when I finally looked back, he was standing even closer. And in one reckless moment, I let go again. I kissed him. Hungrily, desperately, as if the taste of him could erase everything else. The guilt. The fear. What followed was a blur of skin and breath, tangled sheets and whispered names. Moments I wish I could either forget forever or relive endlessly. The next morning, the silence was unbearable. Mason couldn't meet my eyes. I couldn't face my reflection. And then everything fell apart. David came home. And he knew. He felt it in the way I recoiled at his touch. The way Mason averted his gaze. The thick, silent tension none of us could explain. It didn't take long for the truth to come out. The look on David's face, betrayal, disbelief, devastation, is something I'll never forget. He didn't shout. He didn't throw anything. He just walked out. Within a month, the divorce papers arrived. I lost everything. My marriage. My name. The life I'd spent 20 years carefully building. Mason and I tried to hold on to each other. Tried to convince ourselves we could turn our sin into something real. Something worth saving. But we couldn't. The guilt consumed us both. He grew distant. Bitter. One night, after another argument, he looked at me and said, "You ruined me." His voice cracked. "You gave me love, and then you let it destroy everything." He moved out a week later. I haven't seen him since. Sometimes I pass by his old room and catch my reflection in the mirror down the hall. And I don't recognize the woman staring back. She's older, lonelier, maybe wiser, but still haunted by the weight of what she did. Still, I know this. Every rule I broke, every line I crossed came from a place I hadn't known existed. A part of me that was starving to be seen, to be touched, to be wanted. Not as a wife, not as a mother, but simply as a woman. And maybe that's the saddest part of all. Because sometimes, when I lie awake at night, I can still feel the way he looked at me. Like I was the only thing in the world that mattered. And for a moment, just one fleeting, beautiful, terrible moment, I believed it too.